Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to take a look at some absolutely awesome upgrades and improvements that Yuzu, this Nintendo Switch emulator, has seen in the past few days. So for anybody who is experienced with Super Mario running on a Yuzu emulator, you will be already familiar with this screen. As you can see in the bottom of our emulator window, we are running at a locked 60 FPS. However, when we come to emulation, configure, come to our graphics tab and unlimit our frame rate, you are going to see us skyrocket up to well over 200 frames per second. Now, this is a fairly impressive improvement, especially since we used to not even get 30 or 40 frames per second in this exact same window. For now, I'm just going to limit my speed percentage back to 100% just so we get playable frame rates and playable movement speed in these menus. So another fairly significant improvement we have also seen is the fact that we can now select a new game, and when we enter into the very first rendered cutscene in Super Mario Odyssey, we can see a massive improvement to the render quality in this area. Now obviously it's not perfect, but it is still an absolutely huge improvement over what we previously had, which was basically a red and green flickering mess. While yes, it's still kind of a red and green flickering mess, it is at least now legible and all of these shadows and reflections are now correctly rendered. You may be wondering what this black band across the bottom of our screen is. This is actually the text box, and while text is not rendered in this build, I will be showing you slightly later on in this video a brand new PR which has been released by one of the developers of Yuzu, which enables loading of global memory, which actually allows the fonts and text in all of these menus to render. That's a topic for later in the video. Let's continue and take a look at our performance in this cutscene. Keep in mind that this is a 3D rendered cutscene and we are being basically locked to 59 or 60 frames per second 100% of the time. At this moment in time, the audio and core timing in Yuzu emulator is slightly off, so in these cutscenes the sound is super garbled even though our performance is absolutely flawless. So now that we've taken a look at this performance, the next major step in the development of Yuzu comes in the next section of this game and follows directly after this cut sequence ends. What would previously happen is this cutscene would render in a very laggy and broken rendering state, and then as soon as you would enter into gameplay in Cap Kingdom, your game would completely softlock, meaning it would freeze the emulator or it would just completely crash to your desktop. As you are about to see, we now get our save prompt in our bottom left hand corner and we are actually able to successfully load into Cap Kingdom and make an actual autosave, meaning that you no longer need a game save to load into Super Mario Odyssey on Yuzu emulator. Now, the next thing you are going to see is a bug that hopefully will be fixed very soon. Whenever you get a controller prompt, this pop-up in the bottom right hand corner, you are going to get a black screen like this. What you're meant to do at this point in time is move your right thumbstick, and then when the UI or menu pops up, you're supposed to press the B button, which will basically scare Cappy off. Then you have to pause your game, and then when you unpause your game, like you see me do right now, you will have rendered graphics inside of Cap Kingdom. I know this is kind of a terrible workaround, but I just wanted to show you guys that it is indeed possible to load into gameplay, and I will also show you later on in the video when we show you the rendered fonts in game that this becomes a lot more clear as to what you're meant to do in game. So as you see in gameplay now, my performance is not terrible at all, but it actually should be much better. Unfortunately, at this point in time, this actual Yuzu build does not play very well with recording softwares. When I try to use OBS or NVIDIA Share or Shadowplay, whatever you know it by, my performance was at times getting cut in half. So what I'm going to do is, once I get to the top of this bridge right here, I'm going to stop and you're going to see my frame rate and performance. You can see we're almost hitting 20 frames per second. This screenshot right here is what my performance is actually like when I'm not in gameplay and recording. I generally sit around 48 to 50 frames per second at all times in this area. Hopefully I'll be able to figure out what exactly is causing these frame drops for me when I am recording using NVIDIA Share. So moving away from performance numbers and back into some gameplay fixes, Anyone who would have played Super Mario Odyssey and using a save to load themselves into Cap Kingdom, a very similar thing would happen as happened in the very first cut sequence. You would be able to enter it and watch the cut sequence, but as soon as you entered back into gameplay, your game would either freeze, softlock, or completely crash the desktop. So I'm just going to speed up this footage, get us through this cut sequence, and you are indeed going to see that we are able to load through this cutscene, successfully go back into gameplay, and our game will no longer crash. And there we go, we are now successfully loaded back into gameplay. However, if we wait a few seconds, we are going to get another one of those annoying controller prompts in our bottom right hand corner, which means we're going to get a black screen. And there we go, we're going to get a black screen and a controller prompt. All you have to do to get past these black screens is simply pause your game and unpause it, and your game's graphics will be restored. So another one of the improvements we have seen in these latest Canary builds for Yuzu is yet another fix for crashing. This time it is a fix for one of the most major hard locks that was happening to Super Mario Odyssey. When we throw this switch, we're just going to get blacked out graphics. This is due to an opacity issue on the fog in Cap Kingdom at this point in time. I'll show you exactly what I mean slightly later on in the video. Once again, we've gotten another pesky controller pop-up, which requires us to pause our game and unpause it and continue with our gameplay. So let's just cross this bridge, get to Cap Tower, where we are going to see this next hard lock fix. Let's just kill these Goombas and we are going to be entering into this door in this tower. So you can see that our graphics are a little bit messed up in this area. However, when we enter this tower, you are going to see that the game no longer hard locks, freezes at 60 frames per second in this area, and we are now able to successfully load into Cap Tower. Now, performance in this area is actually really stable. I can generally get well over 100 frames per second. However, when we exit Cap Tower, we are going to see that we have a very severe graphical bug in Mario Odyssey on this emulator at this point in time. You can see that when we exit out of any sub area in any of the levels or kingdoms in Super Mario Odyssey, this is exactly what you're going to see. You're going to see your graphics become completely broken. Apparently, this is due to non-implemented 3D textures or global illumination. Now, you can fix this by coming to your options. You can select to change your language. This will in turn load you back out into the main menu of Super Mario Odyssey, where you're going to once again have to change your language back to English, though at this point in time, at least in this build, the language isn't going to matter too much. You are then going to be able to load back into the kingdom that you were previously in, and it will then correctly resume rendering your graphics properly. Well, I say properly, but by properly I obviously mean the rendering state of graphics in Super Mario Odyssey at this point in time. Now, obviously, due to the fact that these changes that fixed all of these soft locks and hard locks, which in turn have given us these blacked out and weird broken graphics once we exit out of a sub area, are more than likely going to be fixed in the next few days. So these little workarounds that I'm showing you are more than likely not going to be required after that point in time. Once they're fixed, I'll also let all of you guys know. So in order to show you some more of the fixes to these soft locks and hard locks, I'm going to have to actually open up Yuzu Emulator itself and import one of my previously backed up game saves. So I'm just going to drag across my Super Mario Odyssey saves into this window and open up this folder. So as you can see, these are all of my saves for different kingdoms, so I can test what performance is like in all of these different kingdoms and areas in Super Mario Odyssey on the different emulator versions. So what I now need to do is I need to scroll down and find Super Mario Odyssey. What I need to do is right click, find its save data location, and this is the folder and area where I'm going to be importing my game saves. As you can see, this is the save that my game made when I created a new game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import my game save where I have access to the Odyssey ship, and I am also in Cap Kingdom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this folder and I'm simply going to copy all of these save files and paste them into my save directory within Yuzu. Once I've done this, all of my saves are now successfully imported, so I can just close all of these folders and reopen and relaunch Super Mario Odyssey. Let's do that right now and get back into gameplay. Okay, so now that we're back in the title menu, all we need to do is come back to our options, data management, load our game, and now we're going to load back into Cap Kingdom, this game save right here. Once again, we're going to have to wait through this loading screen and try to get ourselves back into some live gameplay. Okay, so here we are back in Cap Kingdom, except this time we actually have access to the Odyssey. So previously in the video I wanted to show you the issue with the fog. It's not really an issue, but the reason our camera kind of spazzed out earlier on was because it got stuck in this fog layer just to the side of the bridge, and that is the reason why our camera completely blacked out and freaked out, not showing us any graphics. So the next soft lock I want to show you that is fixed is when you come to the Kingdom Select area, you just throw your cap at this globe and it will allow you to select any kingdom that you have previously visited to revisit. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to select a different kingdom from this area. Unfortunately, at this point in time, this globe and the Odyssey screen is not being fully rendered. So let's just select any one of these kingdoms. This should be Wooded Kingdom, I believe, and as you'll see, we are also now able to successfully load into this cutscene. Previously on Yuzu, we would not be able to load into this. Instead, the emulator would just crash us to our desktop. This is only one of the crash fixes in this cutscene, however, as we are not only able to proceed into this one, we are also able to proceed into the next one where we transfer between kingdoms. Now, as I said, if I wasn't recording, I would be getting an absolutely perfectly locked 60 frames per second or higher in any of these cutscenes. You can even see that I'm getting around 45 to 50 frames per second even now while I am recording. So while yes, I could skip all of these cutscenes, I'm not going to, because I want to show you that while yes, they're not being perfectly rendered, they do in fact work on the emulator right now. So next we're going to load into Wooded Kingdom, and you can see that while we are still having this weird conditional rendering bug, it looks like nothing is being correctly rendered as none of the terrain off in the distance is being rendered. This is 100% due to an LOD or depth bug which is currently plaguing Super Mario Odyssey on Yuzu. So while yes, we do still have these conditional rendering and LOD rendering bugs, I have absolutely no doubt that they will eventually be fixed, and when paired with all of these soft lock, hard lock and crash fix bugs are going to make this game super playable and a very enjoyable experience on Yuzu emulator itself. Performance-wise in Wooded Kingdom, you can see in the bottom of our emulator window that even though we are seeing severely degraded performance due to the fact that I am currently recording using my GPU, our performance is still quite good, staying well over 30 and usually over 40 frames per second in this area. Once I get down into this main hub area in Wooded Kingdom, I'm going to once again freeze my gameplay and I'm going to bring in a screenshot to show you what my actual performance levels are like in this area. You should see that my performance is almost locked to 60 frames per second, staying in between 55 and 60 practically all of the time in this area, once you have gotten past the initial stuttery phase when you load into a new kingdom for the first time. Even with this performance drop down to about 37 to 40 frames per second in this area, this is still probably twice the performance that I was previously getting when using the docked mode, which is twice the resolution of the undocked mode in Super Mario Odyssey on this emulator. For anybody who's not aware, if you run in undocked mode, you're basically going to be running at I think 720p, whereas if you run in docked mode, you're going to be running at 1080p. Please correct me down in the comment section if I'm wrong with those two resolutions. Regardless of these performance drops, in this less densely populated area, you can see that I am jumping up to almost 55 and 60 frames per second in this area, so you can just imagine the kind of performance levels that I am getting when not recording in this place. Okay, so as I said in the beginning of this video, I was going to show you a new PR that has been added to Yuzu emulator, which actually enables loading of global memory, which allows us to show and render the in-game fonts and text in practically all of our games that support them. So let's jump across to that build right now, and I'm going to show you these fonts being rendered in Super Mario Odyssey. So there we go, there is the initial controller notification screen where you can now see all of these fonts successfully being rendered with the utilization of this new LDG PR. Unfortunately, this PR is super buggy and is technically being considered a hack at this point in time by the developers of Yuzu, so it is not currently able to be merged into any of the experimental or canary builds of Yuzu. Once we get into the continue screen, you can also see that these fonts are now being correctly and properly rendered. As I previously said in the video, I'm now going to show you what the introduction sequence looks like when we load into a new game. To do this, I'm going to have to come to one of my game saves and actually make room so I can create a new game save. That means what I'm going to have to do is come back into my previous menu, come to delete, and I'm going to delete one of these saves. Since I have all of these backed up anyway, as previously shown, I'm just going to delete this Moon Kingdom save. You'll see it's going to successfully delete it, and now I'm going to be able to come back into my main continue screen, and now I'm going to be able to select new game, where it's going to ask me to create some new save data. Now, this is going to put me into this assist mode selection screen. You can see fonts are also correctly rendered here. I'm not going to be using assist mode at this point in time. Now, where previously we loaded into this game, we only got a black screen. This is what was actually supposed to be rendered in the skies above Peach's castle. It'll then load you straight back into the initial cutscene that we've already seen, so I'm probably just going to skip this as soon as I am able to do so. So pressing the plus button on my controller, I believe, should bring up the prompt, which will allow me to skip it. It's not currently letting me press it, but there you go. Once I've gotten past this little stuttery section, it will indeed allow me to skip this cutscene. Whereas before, when I got through this cutscene and into gameplay, I only got the little spinning cursor in the bottom left hand corner. Now that we have fonts implemented in this build, we also get the rendered fonts. So, as previously happened, as soon as we are going to get control in actual controlled gameplay, we are going to get hit with this controller pop-up in the bottom right hand corner, and we are going to get a blacked out screen. Except this time we should see that our right thumbstick is going to be shown, and we are actually going to get some information as to what we're supposed to be doing. When we look around, you can see that the B button pops up, and when we press B, you would hear Cappy getting scared and running off into the distance. We should now see our UI popping up, and as soon as it pops up, we can pause our game, unpause it, and we will indeed get rendered graphics. So now you can see that all of these fonts are now being correctly rendered, and all of the inputs that show us all of these hints are also being correctly rendered. One of the main reasons that this font PR is not currently being merged into any of the Canary or experimental builds is mainly due to the fact that it has such a massive performance impact on practically every game that has rendered fonts. You can see that in this bridge section, all of these NPCs now have their fonts and anything they are saying correctly rendered in gameplay. You will also see that when I get to the end of the bridge and enter into this cut sequence, all of the text is also going to be correctly rendered in all of the speech bubbles between Cappy and Mario. Other popular games that are affected by these font rendering changes include Super Mario Odyssey, as you've seen right now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and another Nintendo Switch exclusive, ARMS. So there we have it, guys. There are some major improvements that are already in Yuzu Emulator right now, and some more that will hopefully be added in the coming days, weeks, and months. As always, as this game improves in both compatibility and performance, I will be sure to make some videos and let you guys know as soon as possible. I will also be doing some other very in-depth videos exactly like this one for many other titles as they become bootable on this Nintendo Switch emulator. Once again, at the end of this video, I want to give an absolutely massive thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. If you want to help to support my YouTube channel, you can head on over to my Patreon link that can be found down in the description of this video and pledge to support the channel. If alternatively you want to help with the development of Yuzu, this Switch emulator, you can find a link to their Patreon also listed down in the description of this video. So once again, guys, cheers for checking out the video. Remember to like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and as always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see all future videos from me.